I've seen this story play out a lot of times. You have these guys who get into the drug game early, in their late teens, early 20s. They have a run, 2, 3, 4 years, and that turns into 20, 30 years in prison.
Yeah.
Pretty much every time. And then the next generation comes and they'll say, oh, I'm not going to make the same mistakes. Then you have the BMFs. And then those two guys end up doing 30 years each. And then the next crew comes around and then they get caught for the same thing and so forth. When you look back on the things you've done, if you could change one thing to just change your path at one particular direction, what would that be?
Understanding my own potential. I truly believe that when kids in their formative years don't understand their potential, it becomes like a catalyst to a host of bad decisions, if that makes any sense, right? Because if I understand my potential, then I'll be working on things that are conducive to realizing that. When you have these kids and you see these movies and these autobiographies of kids where their father said, you're a pilot, you the best you could ever be, man. I'm telling you, I believe in you, I trust you. Look in the mirror. I repeat these words. I'm great. I can accomplish anything I want. I'm unstoppable. You know what I mean? A kid in his mind, he starts saying, yeah, right? Not that I didn't have that because my mother placed high value on education. But I never had like a male figure or somebody say, man, you could be this, you could do that, you smart. So I just created my own thing. So I think potential to me is important, understanding your potential, because when I went to prison, then I saw my potential. What the fuck? I got 113 years. So I could have been this, I could have done that. And you see most of these federal judges, what they tell guys when they're sentencing, you could have been a CEO. My judge told me some words like that, like, yo, you could accomplish great things in the community, you're smart, but you chose to go this way with it. So now I gotta punish you. And I'm gonna hit you the hardest because you was a leader and he punished me.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. The whole view on potential, and with me, it was always like, I gotta plan 10 years ahead. I'm not thinking about right now what's going to happen. If I'm a teenager, where am I going to be in my 20s? In my 20s, where am I going to be in my 30s? And even though I've dabbled with illegal things here and there, I've always felt like, what's the point of building up this operation when we're going to be a bigger target for law enforcement? And when we do get busted, it's going to be way worse. So let me not, if I'm buying some drugs, let me just try it and then just stop and get out of it. If I'm selling something that's illegal, yeah, I'm just going to try to dabble in it to pay some bills, but I'm trying to transition into something else. And luckily, I never really got caught up in anything because I always thought there was just more potential later on.
Yeah.
And if you take that away, you're just thinking, well, this is all I have, and let me try to make as much as I can right now. And I think that's ultimately what happened with you.
Yeah. And, on the heels of that, Vlad, I developed a profound admiration for the guys that were around me in those days that I had like 2 guys come to me. It wasn't a lot of guys. Like 2 guys came to me and said, bro, I ain't with this no more. And the rest of dudes are like, man, this dude pussy, man, fuck. And I said, no, let him go. I don't want nobody around me that don't want to be in this, right? But later on, as I started to mature in prison, I said these guys were ahead of the game. They were smarter than us.
Yeah.
They were visionaries. They saw what was coming ahead. We saw it, but we refused to see it. You know what I mean? So I salute you on that too, that you made that decision, because those guys would have turned out to be the smart ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's always crazy how you're saying you refuse to see what was coming, but you're seeing what's happening with everyone around you.
Yeah, that's the insanity of the game. And it's not like I didn't feel like it could happen to me. That's the other insane part about it. But you get to this point where you like, prison is part of the game. Murder is part of the game. Loss of the life is part of the game. And then we start believing, we believe our own narratives. And then you become like this soldier at war, like, I'm at war.
Yeah.
And then you start rationalizing, intellectualizing why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, but you're at war with a group of people that you can't beat, called the feds. AKA the United States of America. Because if you look at your paperwork, it says the United States of America versus
Javier
you.
Car. Yeah.
And they have all the resources in the world. I don't care how big your crew is. Their crew is 100 times bigger. I don't care how many guns they got. They have way bigger guns, and they make the laws on top of it.
They're the biggest gangsters in the world. I said that in this context. One day I looked up the definition of gangster, and they said people in high places behind the scenes pulling the strings. I said, man, I used to call myself a gangster. I wasn't no fucking gangster, man. That's the White House. That's the White House, man. You know, so I look at the game now. When I say the game, I look at life when it comes to business on a whole different lens now. From a whole different lens.
Oh, yeah, man, listen. You're out kidnapping people who are robbing you for drugs, whereas Trump is kidnapping foreign leaders and bringing them back to America and locking them up.
Yeah, just different levels. That's it.
Different levels.
Yeah.
What you're doing is small potatoes to what we do over here.
Exactly. That's the conclusion I reached as well while in there. Because you know, when you're in there for decades like that, you come to, well, me, I can't speak for everybody else. I got to this place where I had to do like some brutally honest introspection. Like I needed to understand me. Like what were some of the things that led to my decision-making process at such an early age, you know? And I think that's why I chose psychology in college. I needed to understand me. And yeah, so.
Yeah. Well, at this point, you're back in Panama. You're not allowed to legally enter America again.
No, they banned me for life.
For life. Does that bother you at all? Because that was really your home for most of your life.
It bothers me from the standpoint of my children and grandchildren, you know, because it's like we have had this long distance relationship for 3 decades. And now I'm home, and it's kind of like the same, with the difference that they could travel down here and we could spend some time, but it's not the same as me living there where I could say, I'm gonna take my grandson to the school, or I'm gonna, you know, do this. So it's kind of similar, but better, if that make any sense.
Yeah.
But we're in the same place, kind of like, still this wedge in the relationship.
Yeah. Well, Panama, I appreciate you telling your story. At the end of the day, a lot of guys from your era, they're like mythical figures and people look up to them and try to emulate and so forth. But this is the reality of what happens.
Absolutely.
From people that era. And you actually became one of the lucky ones, oddly enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say blessed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're still alive. You're out of prison, which you can't say about a bunch of the people that were in that game with you.
Exactly. The vast majority of them passed away. They're gone. I thank you, man, for having me, bro. And I like what you're doing. You're doing it the right way, you know. And you know, we didn't make it happen in 2021 because I wasn't mentally ready at that time, you know, for something like this. But now we going full-fledged with this story. And hopefully, like you said, we're going to edify some of these youngsters to understand, like, you getting into something, you need to understand how this thing plays out. You know, so I appreciate that, bro. Can't thank you enough.
Of course, man. Of course. Well, Panama, appreciate you sharing your story, man. Wish you all the best.
All right, bro.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Peace.